Did you know that a man can own so much gold that the weight of it crushes his soul? Imagine a room, not filled with light, but shimmering with the cold reflection of coins, of statues, of plates and goblets, and yet feeling utterly empty. It's like having an infinite playlist of songs, but no ears to hear them. Before you get too comfortable, go ahead and like this video and subscribe to the channel to encourage me to make more content like this. Also, let us know where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now, dim the lights and let's begin tonight's journey. You are in Rome, in a villa so vast it feels less like a home and more like a small, gilded city. The air is heavy with the scent of cedarwood and expensive oils. Marble floors, cool beneath your feet, stretch out into colonnaded courtyards where fountains whisper secrets to the night. This is your world. You are Marcus Licinius Crassus, and by every measure, you are the master of Rome. Your wealth is a legend, a thing so immense that it has become an abstraction. When senators need loans to fund their campaigns, they come to you. When the state treasury runs low, it is your coffers that prop it up. You own vast tracts of land, silver mines that bleed wealth from the earth, and an army of skilled slaves. You even invented a rather clever, if morally questionable, business model. You created the city's first fire brigade. When a building caught fire, your men would rush to the scene, but they wouldn't put out the flames. Not at first. Instead, you would offer to buy the burning building and the threatened properties next to it for a ridiculously low price. If the terrified owner refused, you would simply let it all burn. If they agreed, your men would extinguish the flames, and you would own yet another piece of Rome, which you would rebuild and rent for a fortune. This is how you became the richest man in the city, a well-known fact that everyone whispers about. And yet, as you sit in your silent atrium, you feel a hollowness that no amount of gold can fill. A gnawing, relentless obsession. It has a name. Two names actually. Pompey and Caesar. Pompey, they call him the Great. His triumphs are the stuff of legend. His victories in the East have brought untold riches and glory to Rome. And then there is Caesar, the charismatic rogue, currently carving his own legend in the wilds of Gaul, conquering tribes with a flair and a genius that makes you clench your jaw. They are the heroes, the darlings of the people. They have Gloria, that sacred, untouchable aura of military triumph. And you are just the man who pays for it all. You are the bank, not the hero. Historians still debate whether your primary motivation was pure greed, or a desperate, almost pathological, need for public adoration that money alone could not buy. Every feast, every Senate meeting, you see their invisible statues standing taller than your own. Their legacies are forged in steel and blood on the battlefield. Yours is forged in ledgers and contracts. This imbalance is a constant, quiet hum of inadequacy, a thirst that water cannot quench. You need a war. You need a victory so spectacular, so undeniable, that it will eclipse them both. Your eyes turn eastward, towards the last great, unconquered empire on the map, a place of silk and spice and ancient mystery. Parthia. You unroll a heavy parchment map across a polished mahogany table. The lands conquered by Pompey are shaded in one color, Caesar's Gallic territories in another. They are impressive, sprawling stains of Roman influence. But your finger, adorned with a heavy gold ring, traces a path past them, eastward, across the river Euphrates, into a vast, almost blank space labeled Parthia. This is not a land of temperate forests and rival tribes like Gaul. This is something else entirely. It is a shimmering mirage on the horizon of your ambition. Parthia, the very name tastes of silk, of cardamom and myrrh. It is the inheritor of the old Persian empires, a civilization that sits astride the trade routes connecting the Mediterranean world to the mysterious lands of the Far East. You imagine caravans, 1,000 camels long, laden with treasures that would make your own hoard look like a provincial piggy bank. You picture its capital, Ctesiphon, with its rumored palaces of glittering tile and gardens that defy the desert heat. To conquer Parthia would not just be a military victory, It would be to seize the very heart of the world's luxury. It would be a triumph so profound, it would make Pompey's eastern campaigns look like a brief coastal tour. But this mirage has a dark, dangerous shimmer. Parthia is an ancient and proud empire, and its people are not like the enemies Rome is used to. They are a different kind of warrior. They are the lords of the horse. Roman strength lies in its infantry, the disciplined legions that march in lockstep, their heavy shields forming an impenetrable wall of steel. The Parthians, you've been told, simply laugh at such formations. Their armies are a fluid, swirling mass of cavalry. They do not meet you head-on. They dance around you, a storm of men and beasts who seem to be a single entity. They are famous for their horse archers, masters of the composite bow, a weapon so powerful it can send an arrow through a Roman shield and the man holding it. They fire from every direction, a relentless rain of death, and when you advance to meet them, they simply melt away into the desert, firing back over their shoulders as they retreat. It's an unnerving, almost cowardly way to fight. You think, unworthy of true warriors. It's a trick. You see Parthia not as a formidable rival, but as an opportunity, a final, grand acquisition. Historians debate whether Rome genuinely feared Parthian expansion into its new territories like Syria, or if this was merely the convenient excuse you needed to launch your private war. To you, the political justifications are just noise, the paperwork needed to authorize your destiny. You have 7 legions, over 40,000 of the world's finest soldiers. What could a band of horsemen, no matter how skilled, do against such a force? In your mind, you are the new Alexander the Great, who marched through these very lands. You conveniently forget that Alexander faced a decadent and crumbling Persian empire, while Parthia is young, vigorous, and has a military doctrine perfectly suited to its environment. Your obsession has become a filter, letting in only the golden light of the prize, while blocking out the stark sun-bleached warnings of the peril. The mirage is too beautiful to be false. You will march into the desert and make it yours. The day you are to leave Rome feels different. The air over the city, usually buzzing with commerce and gossip, seems to hold its breath. There are no cheering crowds lining your path to the city gates. There are only stares, a mixture of awe at your wealth and a deep, unsettling anxiety. You are not just marching to war, you are tearing a hole in the fabric of Roman custom. A war against Parthia has not been sanctioned by the gods or the people. It has been sanctioned only by you, by your ambition and your gold. As you ride through the silent streets, you see a figure blocking the gate. It is the tribune Attius Capito, a man known for his rigid adherence to tradition and his rather theatrical sense of public duty. He has warned you. He has pleaded with the Senate. He has argued that this war is unjust, impious, and will bring ruin upon Rome, and you have ignored him, brushing him aside like a fly. Now, he has decided on a more dramatic approach. He stands beside a small, portable altar, a brazier smoking with foul-smelling incense. Dressed in dark robes, he looks less like a politician and more like a grim priest of some forgotten, underworld cult. As you approach, he begins to chant. It is not a prayer, it is a curse. His voice rises, sharp and clear, naming ancient, terrible deities that are not spoken of in polite company. He calls upon them to witness your arrogance, your greed, your hubris. He dedicates you, your army, and your entire expedition to destruction. The few people gathered fall silent, their faces pale. To a Roman, a formal curse from a tribune is not just political theater. It is a terrifying spiritual event. It is a poison arrow aimed at the soul of your campaign. But you, in your bubble of supreme confidence, you see it differently. This isn't a divine warning. This is the desperate act of a political rival, a petty man trying to steal your moment of glory. It is noise, the sound of envy. This is a classic case of confirmation bias, where your brain, already committed to a path, interprets all evidence to support that path. Negative signs are not seen as warnings, but as obstacles heroically overcome. Attius's curse, to you, is simply the last cry of the small-minded men you are leaving behind. Other omens follow, like small cracks appearing in a great dam. As your lead standard-bearer, the Aquilifer tries to lift the legion's sacred eagle from the ground to begin the march. He finds it stuck. He strains, his face red, the golden eagle seemingly rooted to the soil of Rome, refusing to leave. You laugh it off, making a joke about his strength. An obscure text mentions that as you passed through the gates, you stumbled, a universally bad sign for any traveler. You simply brushed the dust from your cloak and kept walking. Historians still debate whether Aetius was genuinely invoking a curse he believed in, or if he was simply using the most powerful political weapon he had left to publicly shame you. To you, it doesn't matter. Every warning is a whisper you refuse to hear. Every red flag is just another banner waving in your parade. You march out of Rome not just in defiance of your political enemies, but in defiance of the gods themselves, absolutely convinced that you are too big to fail. The curse of Aetius feels a world away now. You stand on a rise overlooking the plains outside Antioch, the Roman capital of Syria. Below you is not a city, but a living, breathing organism of pure military power. Your army. The air hums with its energy, a disciplined cacophony of thousands of men preparing for war. You hear the rhythmic clatter of hammers from the forges, the shouts of centurions drilling their cohorts, the low murmur of 10,000 conversations in a dozen different dialects. The smell is of leather, sweat, hot metal, and the smoke from cooking fires. This is the physical manifestation of your will, an engine of conquest fueled by your gold. It is beautiful, it is terrifying, and it is all yours. 7 legions, close to 45,000 men when you include the auxiliaries and cavalry. Each legionary is a professional soldier, a walking fortress of iron and leather, carrying the iconic rectangular shield, the short, vicious gladius, and 2 heavy pila, the javelins designed to punch through enemy shields and armor. This is the most famous and feared military machine in the known world. At its head, you have placed your son, Publius, in command of 1,000 elite Gallic cavalry. They are fiercely loyal to him, veterans of Caesar's campaigns who followed him east for the promise of glory and plunder. You watch them train, their movements fluid and confident, and you feel a surge of paternal pride that momentarily eclipses even your hunger for glory. The first stage of your campaign only serves to deepen this intoxicating confidence. You lead the army across the great Euphrates River without opposition. The Parthians are nowhere to be seen. You march into the northern plains of Mesopotamia and capture a few poorly defended towns. The locals, mostly Hellenistic Greeks, offer little resistance. It feels less like a war and more like a large-scale administrative takeover. Your men are barely bloodied. It is exactly as you predicted. The Parthians are a phantom threat, a paper tiger. The real work, you feel, is not the fighting, but the accounting of all the new wealth you are liberating. You make a decision that will be endlessly analyzed by future generations. Historians still debate why you didn't press your advantage, establishing a strong, fortified base deep in Mesopotamia from which to launch the next phase. Instead, you leave a few garrisons in the captured towns and withdraw the bulk of your massive army back across the river, to winter in the relative comfort and safety of Syria. Perhaps you wanted to manage the logistics, to engage in a bit of provincial fundraising. Or maybe you simply felt the campaign was already won and a winter break was a deserved reward, like a corporate team enjoying a retreat after a successful quarter. Your soldiers, men recruited from the farms of Italy and the forests of Gaul, spend the winter mending their gear and gambling away their pay. An obscure but telling detail is the state of their footwear. They check the heavy iron hobnails on their caligae, the military sandals designed for Europe's hard-packed roads and temperate climates. You give no thought to how these boots will perform in 100 miles of burning, shifting sand. The initial ease of your advance has acted as the ultimate antidote to every warning. The omens in Rome are now just amusing anecdotes. The real world has proven you right. The snows on the distant mountains have melted. and the Syrian spring gives way to the first hints of a punishing summer. Your army is once again mustered, their spirits high after a winter of rest. The easy victories of the previous year have bred a dangerous contempt for your enemy. You are ready to cross the Euphrates again, to finish what you started. As you prepare to march, two very different men come to offer you counsel. The first is Artavasdes, the king of Armenia, a trusted ally of Rome. He rides into your camp at the head of 6,000 of his own heavy cavalry, a magnificent force. He urges you, begs you, to take the northern route. March through his kingdom of Armenia, he says. The path is hilly and rugged, unsuited for the Parthian horsemen, and he can supply your massive army from his own lands. More importantly, he will add his cavalry to yours, creating a force that can counter the Parthian horse archers. It is the safe, logical, and strategically sound plan. And then the second man arrives. His name is Ariams, an Arab chieftain from a local desert tribe. He is smooth, charismatic, and his words are like honeyed wine. He speaks fluent Latin, a rarity that immediately earns your trust. He bows low, telling you that you are the greatest general Rome has ever seen, a new god of war, destined to conquer the East. He confirms everything you want to believe. He tells you the Parthians are in a panic. Their king is weak, their generals are quarreling, and they are already gathering their treasures to flee eastward. He says the path through Armenia is a coward's route, a long, tedious detour. The real glory, the swift and total victory, lies directly east. A quick, decisive march across the desert will catch the Parthians completely by surprise. You will be in their capital before they even know you have crossed the river. He paints a picture of a short, glorious campaign, ending with you seated on a golden throne, the riches of Parthia at your feet. You look from Artavasdes, the cautious, sensible ally offering a difficult but secure path, to Ariamnes, the flattering stranger offering a quick and glorious shortcut, and your fatal obsession makes the choice for you. You don't want a difficult path, you want a legend. You thank the Armenian king for his counsel, but politely decline his offer of troops and his route. A general like you doesn't need help, and you certainly don't need to take the long way around. You turn to Ariamnes and place a hand on his shoulder. He will be your guide. Historians still debate whether Ariamnes was a paid Parthian agent from the very beginning, sent with a carefully crafted script to lure you into a trap, or simply a clever opportunist. To you, he is a godsend, a man who finally understands your vision. Your son, Publius, and your other commanders, your quaestor, Cassius Longinus among them, are uneasy. They trust the Armenian king. They do not trust this smiling desert chieftain. But your word is law. You give the order. The legions turn their backs on the cool, life-giving waters of the Euphrates and march east, following Ariamnes into a vast, featureless expanse of shimmering sand and sky. You have chosen the shortcut to glory. You do not realize you are marching into a trap. At first, the desert is a novelty. Your soldiers, men from the green hills of Italy and the damp forests of Gaul, march with a swagger. The sky is a brilliant, cloudless blue, and the endless expanse of sand feels like the floor of a vast, empty temple. Your guide, Ariamnes, rides beside you, pointing to distant smudges on the horizon, promising that just beyond them lies the broken and fleeing Parthian army. He is a constant source of encouragement, his smile as bright and unwavering as the sun. But the sun in the east is a different beast. It is not the gentle, life-giving star of Rome. Here, it is a white, merciless eye in the sky. By the third day, the novelty has burned away. The heat is no longer just warmth. It is a physical weight, pressing down on the shoulders of your men, finding its way through the thick wool of their tunics and the gaps in their iron armor. The air you breathe is hot and dry, like inhaling from an open furnace. It rasps in your throat and burns your lungs. The world bleeds of its color, bleached to shades of tan and shimmering white. The only sound is the rhythmic clank of 50,000 sandals, a sound that is quickly swallowed by the immense, profound silence of the desert. It is a silence so complete, it feels like a pressure on your eardrums. The jokes and marching songs have died. Now, the only sound is the shuffling of feet and the occasional, desperate cough. Thirst becomes the only reality. The water in your legionary skins, carefully rationed, grows warm and tastes of stale leather. It provides a moment of relief, but it is never enough. You see men's lips crack and bleed. You see their eyes, once sharp and disciplined, become dull and unfocused. They begin to see things in the shimmering heat haze, ghostly lakes that vanish as they approach, mocking their agony. The desert itself feels like an enemy, a living thing that wants you dead. An obscure but persistent belief among some soldiers is that the wobbling air itself contains malevolent spirits, jinns that delight in leading men astray and drinking their vitality. You watch your army, this perfect machine of war, begin to falter. The famous Roman discipline, forged in 100 campaigns, is being boiled away. The heavy iron helmets become ovens, cooking the men inside. Their iconic hobnailed sandals, the caligae, designed to grip the roads of Europe, are a curse here. They offer no protection from the scorching sand that burns through the leather straps, and they sink with every step, turning the march into a grueling, leg-destroying trudge. Historians still debate the exact route the army took, as the landscape itself has shifted over to millennia, burying the path of your doomed legions under seas of sand. You, however, feel only impatience. You see the suffering, but you interpret it as weakness. You push them harder, urging them on, clinging to Ariadne's promise that the end is near. Your thirst for glory is so powerful that it makes you deaf to the desperate, unspoken thirst of your men. You are so focused on the enemy you expect to find, you fail to see the one that has already surrounded you. Amidst the sea of suffering faces, one stands out. You turn your gaze from the faltering ranks and focus on a single rider who seems immune to the despair. It is your son, Publius. He rides at the head of his 1,000 Gallic cavalry, men who followed him from the green, misty forests of their homeland into this sun-blasted hell. He does not slump in the saddle. His back is straight, the sun-cracked leather of his armor fitting him like a second skin. You watch him move among his men, sharing a word of encouragement here, a sip of his own water there. He has their absolute devotion, a bond forged not in the ballrooms of Rome, but in the brutal crucible of Caesar's Gallic wars. This is a widely known fact, and a source of both immense pride and a secret gnawing envy for you. Publius earned his laurels under another man's command, a glory that is his alone. He is everything you wish you were seen as. He is a natural warrior, charismatic, brave, and deeply respected by his soldiers. He is your legacy made flesh, a younger, more handsome, more heroic version of yourself. Your obsession for glory is not just for you, it is for him, for the continuation of the Licinian name as a military dynasty, not just a financial one. You see him as the final, perfect instrument of your ambition. His loyalty is absolute, a cornerstone of the Roman virtue of pietas, the sacred duty to one's father, country, and gods. When you look at him, you see a reflection of your own will, but purified, stronger. You see victory. His Gallic horsemen are a strange and fascinating sight, an eccentric addition to the disciplined uniformity of the legions. They are larger than the average Roman, with wild hair often lightened with lime water to a shocking blonde or red, and they wear intricate bronze torques around their necks, symbols of their status. They fight with a ferocity that borders on joyful madness, a stark contrast to the grim professionalism of your elite bollaries. They are loyal to Publius personally, not to Rome, not to you. They would follow him anywhere, and you know this. It is a powerful tool. Historians still debate whether Publius's unwavering public loyalty masked private, desperate arguments with his father about the wisdom of this desert march. You choose to see only the loyalty, the perfect devotion of his son to his father's vision. You see him in his fierce cavalry, not as a precious, finite resource, but as the tip of your spear, the weapon you will use to deliver the killing blow. He rides back toward you, his expression serious but resolute. He reports that the men are near their limit, that the water is almost gone. But before you can formulate a response, your guide Ariamnes, his smile unwavering, points a slender finger toward the horizon, a cloud, faint plume of dust, small and insignificant, yet undeniably there. He tells you it is the Parthian rear guard, panicked and disorganized. He tells you victory is just a few more miles away. The sight of that dust cloud, as faint as a breath on a cold day, changes everything. A wave of renewed hope, desperate and fragile, ripples through the ranks. Men who were stumbling, their heads bowed, now straighten their backs. They grip their weapons with a new resolve. Water, thirst, heat, it all momentarily fades into the background, replaced by the primal, energizing thrill of imminent battle. But your senior officers, men like the sharp-eyed quaestor, Cassius Longinus, do not share the relief. They look at you, then at your smiling guide, then back at that distant dust. Their instincts, honed on a dozen battlefields, are screaming that something is wrong. An army in a panicked retreat does not kick up such a small, neat cloud of dust. But you have come too far to listen to doubt. Now, you have marched for days, invested thousands of men and a fortune in supplies into this single, decisive thrust. Turning back now would be an admission of catastrophic failure. This is a powerful trap of the human mind, a psychological pitfall that has doomed kings and commoners alike. It's called the sunk cost fallacy. It's the reason you might sit through a terrible movie just because you paid for the ticket, or continue eating a meal you don't enjoy simply because you ordered it. The mind hates to admit waste. It tells you that because you've already invested so much, you must continue, even if every new sign tells you to stop. To turn back now would mean the suffering of your men was for nothing. The curse of Aetius would be proven true. The whispers of your rivals in Rome would become a roar of laughter. Your entire fortune, your political career, your son's future, all of it has been wagered on this single roll of the dice. You are psychologically incapable of walking away from the table. As you give the order to advance, Ariamnes, your trusted guide, flashes one last, brilliant smile. He tells you that he will ride ahead with his men. He will sow chaos among the fleeing Parthians, he says, and ensure they cannot regroup. It is a perfect, logical reason. You clap him on the shoulder, a gesture of gratitude and command, and watch as he and his riders spur their horses, galloping away toward the dust cloud and vanishing into the heat haze. And then, there is only silence. The minutes stretch into an hour. The desert becomes empty again. There are no more promises, no more reassurances. There is only you, your 40,000 men, and the crushing realization that you are utterly, hopelessly alone. The trap has been sprung. Cassius approaches you, his face a grim mask. He doesn't need to say the words. You have not followed a guide to victory. You have been led to a killing ground. Historians debate at what exact moment Crassus realized he was betrayed, or if his pride blinded him until the very last second. But in this moment, a cold dread finally pierces the armor of your obsession. There is no going back now, not because it is too far, but because you are exactly where your enemy wants you to be. The quiet that follows your guide's departure is more terrifying than any battle cry. It is a hollow, ringing silence that magnifies the sound of every nervous cough, every creak of leather armor. The sun beats down with a relentless physical force. Your army, once a confident river of steel, has now slowed to a nervous halt in a vast, featureless plain near a town called Carrhae. There are no hills to take for a defensive advantage, no forests to shelter in, no rivers to guard your flanks. There is only sand and sky and the shimmering, deceptive heat. Your commanders urge you to allow the men to rest, to make camp, to regain some strength before facing whatever is coming. But your patience, already worn thin by the desert, is gone. You were stung by the betrayal, infuriated. You want a battle. You want to punish the enemy that has made a fool of you. You order the legions to form up, not in their deep, traditional marching columns, but in a massive, hollow square. It is a formation of pure defense, a slow-moving fortress of shields and spears, designed to repel attacks from all sides. It is a formation of fear, and then you see them. At first, they are just a darker line on the horizon, a ripple in the heat haze. But the line grows, widens, and resolves itself into figures. Parthian cavalry, but they are not what you expected. There are no great masses of men, no glittering armor of a royal guard. They are few in number, perhaps 1,000 riders at most. They move with an unnatural grace, their horses seeming to glide over the sand. They are led by a man who seems impossibly tall in the saddle. He is young, handsome, with long flowing hair and painted eyes. He looks less like a general and more like a character from a play. This is Serena, the supreme commander of the Parthian forces, a man whose wealth and lineage are second only to the Parthian king himself. His presence is an eccentricity in itself, as Parthian kings rarely allowed their most powerful nobles to achieve such military glory. They do not charge, they do not sound trumpets or issue challenges. They simply flow around your massive, static square, staying just outside the effective range of your legionaries' javelins. They are like wolves circling a great, lumbering beast, testing it, watching it, letting the fear and the heat do their work. They are a ghostly presence, appearing and disappearing in the dust they kick up. It is a deeply unnerving tactic. Roman warfare is a brutal, straightforward affair. Two armies meet, they fight, one breaks and runs. This is something else. It is psychological. It is a performance. Serena has deliberately shown you only a fraction of his force. A well-known tactic to lure an overconfident commander into a reckless attack. Historians still debate the true size of Serena's army, with estimates ranging from 10,000 to a much larger force he kept hidden. To you, in that moment, all you see is this small, arrogant band of riders taunting you. Your frustration builds. You order your light infantry, your archers and slingers, to advance and drive them off. The men charge forward, shouting their war cries, but they are chasing ghosts. The Parthians simply melt back into the desert, leading your men further and further away from the safety of the square, into the suffocating heat and the unknown. Your light infantry straggles back to the safety of the square, their faces flushed with heat and frustration. They have nothing to report but exhaustion. They chased shadows and found only more sand. The brief flicker of action dies down, and the silence returns, heavier and more menacing than before. The Parthian riders have reformed their loose circle around you, still just out of range, still watching. And then it begins. Not with a charge or the blast of a trumpet, but with a sound, a low rhythmic thrumming that seems to come from all directions at once. It is a sound that does not belong in the natural world. It is deeper than thunder, more resonant than an earthquake. It is a gut punch of pure, primal noise that you feel in the bones of your teeth and the cavity of your chest. The sound grows, a terrifying crescendo that swallows all other noise. It is the sound of the Parthian war drums. This is a widely known and feared element of their warfare. They used massive kettle drums, hollow bronze or wooden bowls covered with stretched animal hides. They didn't just tap them, they beat them with heavy leather mallets, creating a discordant, deafening roar designed to terrify not just the men, but their horses. Your cavalry mounts begin to panic, their eyes rolling, fighting the reins. Your legionaries' men, conditioned to the sharp, clear calls of Roman trumpets and horns, are visibly shaken. There is no melody to this sound, no rhythm they can understand. It is pure, weaponized chaos. It is the sound of an approaching monster. As the drumming reaches its peak, the Parthians perform their next act. The riders, who had seemed so drab and dusty, suddenly shrugged off the dull-colored cloaks and animal skins that were covering their armor, and in a single, coordinated movement, the desert explodes with light. What was a dusty, unimpressive force is revealed to be an army of glittering steel and polished bronze. The sun catches on thousands of pointed helmets and gleaming breastplates. It is a calculated, theatrical reveal, designed to shock and awe. Serena, their commander, sits on his horse like the conductor of this terrifying orchestra of fear. You notice an eccentric detail about him. His face is painted with cosmetics, and his hair is elaborately styled. Less a warrior and more a performer in this grand, terrifying play. He has attacked your army's mind, and now he is attacking its senses. Historians still debate whether the drums were a primary command signal for the vast, dispersed Parthian force, or if their main purpose was purely psychological terror. Standing there, feeling the vibration in your very soul, you have no doubt about their purpose. This is the performance art of intimidation. This is a prelude to slaughter. The confidence you saw in your men just an hour ago has evaporated, replaced by a wide-eyed primal fear. Your centurions bark orders, trying to hold the lines, their voices barely audible over the hellish drumming. The perfect Roman square, your fortress of steel, suddenly feels very much like a cage. The drumming stops. The sudden silence is almost as shocking as the noise it replaced. Into this ringing void, Serena gives a silent signal, and the sky goes dark. It begins with a sound, a high, collective hiss like a million angry snakes. Then, from every point of the compass, a storm of arrows arcs up into the brilliant blue sky, blotting out the sun. For a moment, it is almost beautiful, a man-made eclipse. Then the storm breaks. The arrows do not fall. They drive downwards with incredible force, a torrent of sharpened steel and wood. The front ranks of your legions raise their heavy shields, forming the famous testudo, the tortoise formation. Under normal circumstances, it is an almost impenetrable shell, but these are not normal arrows. The Parthian composite bow, a masterpiece of laminated wood, horn, and sinew, is a notoriously powerful weapon. The arrows it fires are heavy, with a three-bladed iron tip designed for one purpose, to punch through armor. The sound is horrific. It is not the clean thwack of arrows hitting wood. It is a series of brutal, percussive impacts, a sickening crunch as tips pierce the thick plywood and leather of the shields, followed by a wet, percussive thud and a scream as they find the soft flesh behind them. Men cry out, not just in pain, but in shock. Their shields, their trusted defenses, have been violated. They are being killed through their armor. The arrows pin their shields to their arms, making them unwieldy and useless. Men are struck in the feet and legs through the gaps in the shield wall. The arrows that miss the front ranks arc high over the square, falling almost vertically, finding victims deep within the formation who thought they were safe. There is nowhere to hide. It is a systematic, industrial process of destruction. The first volley slackens, and your centurions, brave and resolute, roar at the men to hold the line. They replace the fallen, dragging the wounded to the center of the square. The legionaries stand their ground, a testament to their incredible discipline. They are waiting for the inevitable lull, the moment when the archers exhaust their quivers and the real battle, the hand-to-hand combat they excel at, can begin. But the lull never comes. A second volley darkens the sky, then a third, then a fourth. It is relentless. It is impossible. No army in the world carries this many arrows. Your soldiers look at each other, their faces a mixture of defiance and a dawning, terrible understanding. This isn't a battle. This is an execution. Historians still debate the effectiveness of the testudo against heavy horse archers, with some arguing it was a death trap that made the legions a static target. The eccentric detail of this moment is the sheer variety of arrowheads used. Parthians were not standardized, and archaeological finds suggest everything from simple points to barbed, incendiary, and even whistling arrowheads designed to add to the psychological terror. You stand in the center of your steel cage, watching your perfect army being dismantled, piece by bloody piece, by an enemy that refuses to even get close enough to fight. The storm has no end. Your mind, a Roman mind, a mind built on logic, order, and the predictable mathematics of war, refuses to accept what is happening. This is not possible. You have seen Gallic archers, Cretan mercenaries, the best in the world. An archer carries a single quiver, A man can only carry so many arrows. The most intense archery assault lasts for minutes, not hours. It is a law of nature, a fundamental principle of combat. After the arrows run out, the real fighting begins. You wait for that moment, clinging to it as a drowning man clings to a piece of driftwood. The storm must break, the sky must clear, but it does not. The hissing, screaming torrent is endless. Your men are dying, your formations are crumbling, and the logic of your world is breaking apart. Then, through a temporary gap in the swirling dust and chaos, your quester Cassius, his face pale under a film of grime, points a trembling finger. He says nothing. He doesn't need to. You follow his gaze, past the glittering, dancing line of horse archers, further into the desert, and you see it. It is the secret. It is the answer to the impossible question. It is a long, brown line that stretches for what looks like a mile. At first you mistake it for a ridge, a feature of the landscape, but it is moving. It is a line of animals, camels, hundreds of them, perhaps 1,000. This is the famously documented, ingenious logistical system of the Parthians. They have brought their supply depot with them to the battlefield. You watch with a kind of detached, intellectual horror as the system works with a terrifying, rhythmic efficiency. A Parthian rider, his quiver empty, wheels his horse away from the battle line. He gallops not in retreat, but towards the camel train. As he approaches, a handler throws him a new, full quiver. The rider discards his empty one, slings the new one over his shoulder, and returns to the fight without ever slowing down. It is a seamless, continuous loop of death. There is no pause, no lull, no moment of respite. Your men are not fighting an army. They are weathering a natural disaster, a permanent hailstorm of steel. An obscure detail of this strategy is that these camels, almost certainly dromedaries, carried not just an immense supply of arrows, but also water, allowing the Parthian army to operate with impunity in a desert that was killing your own men by inches. Your hope, that last, stubborn Roman virtue, dies in your throat. It is replaced by a cold, leaden certainty. The arrows will not stop until every man in your army is dead. Historians still debate the precise scale of this logistical miracle, whether it was hundreds of camels or the 1,000 Plutarch claimed. But for your soldiers on the ground, the number was infinite. Your obsession brought you here seeking a glorious, personal confrontation. Instead, you have been fed into an impersonal, industrial killing machine. The sight of the camel train breaks something inside you. The last vestige of Roman arrogance, the belief in your army's inherent superiority, dissolves into the dusty air. But for your son, Publius, it is not a signal of despair. It is a call to action. He sees what you see, that the passive, defensive square is a death trap. He rides to your side, his young face streaked with sweat and dust, his eyes burning with a desperate, heroic fire. He tells you that he cannot stand by and watch his men, his loyal goals, be slaughtered from a distance. He requests permission, he begs you, to take his cavalry in charge. He will break the circle. He will attack the horse archers directly, disrupt their rhythm, and give the legions a chance to breathe, a chance to advance. It is a wild, almost suicidal plan, a cavalry charge against a numerically superior and more mobile force. But it is better than doing nothing. It is a flicker of hope in the encroaching darkness. Your mind, paralyzed by the scale of the disaster, seizes on his plan. You see not the desperation, but the potential for glory. You see your son, a hero, shattering the Parthian line. You give the order, go. You say go and win. Publius wheels his horse around, raises his sword, and roars a command in his native Gallic tongue. And his 1,000 cavalrymen, along with a few cohorts of supporting infantry, erupt from the static square. It is a sudden, violent explosion of movement. They charge into the desert, a thunderous wave of men and horses, their war cries a stark contrast to the grim silence of the legions. The Parthians, for the first time, seem surprised. They wheel their horses, not in a panic, but in an organized, fluid retreat. They are pulling back. It looks like it's working. A cheer goes up from the legions. They watch as Publius and his Gauls drive the enemy back, further and further into the desert, until they are just a distant cloud of dust. But this is not a retreat. It is a trap. This is the Parthians' most famous and deadliest tactic, the feigned flight. Serena, the master performer, has orchestrated this perfectly. He has dangled the bait, and your brave, impetuous son has taken it. Once Publius's force is far enough away from the main army, beyond any hope of support from your legions, the trap is sprung. The retreating horse archers suddenly turn, and from behind the dunes and ridges of the desert, thousands of previously hidden Parthian cataphracts emerge. These are the Parthian heavy cavalry, the polar opposite of the light horse archers. They are knights in shining armor, both horse and rider completely encased in overlapping plates of iron and bronze mail. They are living battering rams. Historians still debate the psychological impact of seeing these armored behemoths for the first time. They were the tanks of the ancient world. They form a wall of steel that crashes into Publius's exhausted, overextended force, while the horse archers circle around, cutting off any path of retreat. Your son's heroic charge has not broken the enemy line. It has led him and his most loyal men directly into an ambush. Back in the hollow square, the momentary cheer dies in the throats of your legionaries. The sky, which had briefly cleared over them, darkens once again as the Parthian horse archers, their numbers seemingly undiminished, return to their grim work. The arrow storm resumes, more focused now, more vicious. The hope that Publius had created curdles into a new and terrible anxiety. You stare out into the desert, your eyes straining to see past the shimmering heat and dust, searching for any sign of your son's victorious return. The minutes stretch into an eternity, each one measured by the thud of arrows into shields and flesh. You hear no sounds of fighting from the distance, no clash of swords, no cries of victory. There is only the hiss of the endless arrow storm and the groans of your own dying men. Then, you see a new group of riders approaching. They are not attacking. They are moving slowly, deliberately, towards your lines. They are carrying something. A murmur of confusion and dread ripples through the ranks. As they get closer, the object they carry comes into focus. It is a long spear, held aloft like a legionary standard, and impaled on its tip is a human head. Even from a distance, you recognize the sandy blonde hair, darkened with blood and dust. You recognize the features, frozen in a mask of defiance. It is the head of your son, Publius. The riders bring it to a halt just outside your lines, turning it slowly so that every man in the front rank can see. They are not just showing you proof of his death, they are presenting it to you, a gift, a trophy. It is a grotesque parody of a Roman triumph, where a victorious general would display the spoils of war. Serena is mocking you, using your most sacred traditions against you. The reaction in the Roman square is a wave of collective, soul-crushing horror. The discipline that is held for hours under the arrow storm finally cracks. Men weep openly. Others stare, their faces blank with shock. The psychological impact is far more devastating than any physical attack. The Parthians have not just killed your son, they have killed your army's hope. An obscure but poignant detail from the historical accounts states that they shouted taunts, asking about the noble family and brave father of this young warrior, a cruel and theatrical piece of psychological warfare. You, Marcus Licinius Crassus, the richest man in Rome, the man whose ambition drove this entire enterprise, you stand frozen. The accounts say that in this moment, you rallied, you walked among your men, telling them that this was your loss, your private grief, and that they must fight on for the eagles of Rome. But it was a hollow performance. Your words were just sounds. The man who spoke them was already dead inside. Historians still debate the precise nature of your reaction, whether it was a stoic display of Roman virtue or the robotic movements of a man in complete psychological shock. The fatal obsession that had burned so brightly within you, the fire that had driven you across an empire, has been extinguished by a single horrific sight. Your world, once so full of golden ambition, has been reduced to the bloody head of your son on the end of a Parthian spear. The sun begins its slow descent, painting the western sky in bruised shades of purple and orange. The light softens, but it brings no relief. The arrow storm, which had tormented you under the full glare of noon, continues unabated into the twilight. Your army is a wreck. The perfect square is a ragged, shrinking pen of terrified survivors, huddled together over the bodies of their comrades. But the physical destruction is nothing compared to the collapse of the command structure. The mind of the army is gone, because your mind is gone. You are no longer Marcus Licinius Crassus, proconsul of Syria, conqueror of Spartacus, richest man in Rome. You are just an old man who has watched his son die. The intricate tapestry of your ambition has been torn to shreds, leaving only the raw, threadbare canvas of grief. You wander through the ranks, your movements slow and disconnected. Your officers, your quaestor, Cassius, and the legate Octavius, come to you for orders. They ask you what to do. Should they attempt to break out? Should they surrender? Should they hold their ground and die where they stand? They look at you, their commander, for guidance, for a plan, for a single word of decisive leadership, and you simply stare back at them, your eyes vacant. You cannot process their questions. You cannot formulate a response. The part of your brain that made you a ruthless businessman, a calculating politician, a general, has shut down. You are trapped in a feedback loop of trauma, replaying the image of your son's head over and over. This is a recognized psychological state, a form of acute stress reaction where the mind, overwhelmed by a traumatic event, effectively disconnects from reality to protect itself. You have retreated into a fortress of grief, and you have locked the gates, leaving your army outside to perish. Your commanders, seeing that you are lost, take control. This is a widely known but still shocking moment in Roman military history, a de facto mutiny born not of rebellion, but of necessity. Cassius and Octavius convene a council of the surviving centurions. They make the decisions you are no longer capable of making. The fire of your obsession had fueled this entire disaster, and now that the fire is out, there is only cold, hard reality. Your subordinates are now in command, trying to salvage something from the wreckage you created. An obscure detail that highlights your complete detachment is that you had to be physically led by the hand by your officers, like a lost child. They wrapped you in a cloak and sat you down, effectively removing you from the chain of command while still trying to preserve the dignity of your office. Historians still debate whether your breakdown was a temporary state of shock or a permanent psychological shattering, but for the men dying around you, the distinction was irrelevant. The leader who had led them into this hell with such unshakable confidence had abandoned them, not with an order or a retreat, but with the profound and terrifying silence of a broken mind. Your fatal obsession did not just doom your army, it consumed you first. Darkness falls completely. It is not a comforting darkness, but a heavy, suffocating blanket that seems to absorb all sound. The relentless drumming has stopped. The arrow storm has ceased. The Parthians, confident that their prey cannot escape, have withdrawn for the night. The silence they leave behind is filled with a new horror. From the darkness all around the shattered Roman square, the cries begin. There the voices of the wounded, the thousands of men you cannot save. Men with arrows through their chests, men with shattered limbs, men dying of thirst and blood loss. They cry out for their mothers, for their comrades, for a sip of water, for a quick death. They are the men who followed you into the desert, who trusted your ambition, and now you must leave them behind. Your commanders, Cassius and Octavius, have made the agonizing but necessary decision. The only chance for survival is to retreat under the cover of darkness, to try and reach the relative safety of the Roman-held town of Carrhae. To do that, they must travel light and fast. They cannot take the thousands of wounded with them. To even try would be to doom everyone. It is a brutal, heart-wrenching piece of military logic. The collective good, the survival of the eagles and the remnants of the legions, must outweigh the lives of the individual soldiers who can no longer fight. So the order is given, passed in hushed, desperate whispers from centurion to cohort. They will slip away, leaving the wounded behind. It is one of the most famously grim decisions in Roman military annals. The psychological torment of this moment is unimaginable. As your able-bodied men begin to stir, preparing to move, the wounded realize what is happening. Their cries for help turn into screams of terror and betrayal. They call out to their friends by name, reminding them of shared battle, of oaths sworn over campfires. They try to crawl after them, grabbing at the cloaks and sandals of their departing comrades. The men who are leaving have to physically push them away, their faces streaming with tears, their hearts breaking. They are abandoning their brothers to be butchered by the Parthians at dawn. An eccentric and chilling detail recorded by Plutarch is that the Parthians themselves seemed to know this would happen, and they deliberately made noise in their camps to make the Romans believe they were preparing a night attack, a psychological trick to keep them pinned down and paralyzed with fear. For a time, it works. The Romans hesitate, terrified of marching into an ambush, but the cries of their own wounded are more terrifying than the fear of the enemy. Finally, they move. You are lifted to your feet, still wrapped in your cloak, still lost in your silent world of grief. You are half carried, half dragged along with the silent, weeping column of survivors as they slip away from the sounds of their own dying army. You have left behind not just your wounded, but the last vestiges of Roman honor. You are part of a ghost army now, a shambling column of survivors stumbling through the cold desert night. The retreat from Carrhae is not a disciplined military maneuver. It is a desperate flight for survival. All order is gone. The proud legions have disintegrated into small, frightened groups of men, each trying to find their own way through the darkness. The moon is a sliver in the sky, offering little light. Men trip over unseen rocks. They get lost. They wander off into the darkness and are never seen again. Your small group, containing you and most of the senior command, manages to reach the walled town of Carrhae just before dawn. You are safe, for now. But thousands of your men are not so lucky. They are still out there, scattered across the plains, hunted. As the sun rises, the true horror of the situation becomes clear. The Parthians, as predicted, have swarmed over your abandoned camp, slaughtering the 4,000 wounded men you left behind. And now, their hunt begins in earnest. The desert, which had been your enemy because of its heat and emptiness, is now your enemy because of its openness. There is nowhere to hide. The Parthian horse archers, fresh and well rested, fan out across the plains. They are like predators hunting a scattered herd. They ride down the small groups of exhausted, desperate legionaries. For your men, it is a hopeless fight. They are on foot, dehydrated and demoralized. They try to form small shield walls, pathetic imitations of the Great Square, but they are quickly overwhelmed by the endless arrows. It is a slaughter, a series of small, brutal skirmishes played out across miles of sun-baked earth. From the walls of Carrhae, you can see it happening. You watch as plumes of dust mark the location of another group of your soldiers being found and exterminated. The Parthians are methodical, patient. They take their time. A widely known fact of this phase of the battle is that many Roman soldiers, seeing the hopelessness of their situation, chose to take their own lives rather than be captured or killed by the arrow storm. Your safety within the city walls feels like a coward's reprieve. You are a general watching his army die from a balcony seat. Cassius, ever the pragmatist, argues that you must abandon Carrhae immediately. The town is not well supplied, and it will soon be surrounded and besieged. He takes a contingent of cavalry and breaks out, successfully escaping back to Syria. Historians debate whether Cassius's escape was a calculated move to save a remnant of the army or an act of desertion. For you, the debate is meaningless. You are paralyzed, incapable of making a choice. Your legate, Octavius, a man of profound loyalty, refuses to abandon you. He and his men stay. The obsession that led you here has been replaced by a lethargy so profound it feels like a physical illness. You are no longer driving events. You are simply being carried along by them, a piece of driftwood in a river of blood. The brief sanctuary of Carrhae has become a trap. The Parthian army, led by the ever-present Serena, surrounds the city. The arrow storm that destroyed you on the plains can just as easily destroy you here. There is no escape. Another retreat is planned, another desperate flight in the dead of night. This time, the goal is to reach the mountains of Armenia, the safe route that you so arrogantly rejected what feels like a lifetime ago. You are once again led out into the darkness, a silent, shuffling figure at the center of a column of nervous men. The retreat is a disaster from the start. Your local guides are untrustworthy, and one of them, a man named Andromatius, is another paid Parthian agent. He deliberately leads your column, not towards the safety of the hills, but into a marshy, difficult terrain of streams and gullies, slowing your progress to a crawl. As dawn breaks, the Parthians fall upon you once more. The scene from the previous day repeats itself, but this time it is even more desperate. Your men are trapped in the boggy ground, their heavy sandals sinking into the mud. They are exhausted, starving, and their will to fight is almost gone. Octavius, your loyal legate, makes a heroic stand with his men on a small hill, fighting with a ferocity born of pure despair. He and his men know they are going to die, but they are determined to sell their lives dearly. Seeing their stand, you and your small command group manage to scramble to a nearby hillock, a pitiful piece of high ground that offers a temporary reprieve. From this vantage point, you watch Octavius and his men be surrounded and cut down. Then Serena, the architect of your ruin, plays his final, masterful card. He orders his men to cease their attack. He rides forward alone, unarmed, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. He calls out to you, his voice calm and reasonable. He says that the Parthian king does not want to continue this bloodshed. He admires the bravery of your men, and he is prepared to offer a truce. All he asks is that you come down and meet with him to discuss the terms for your army's safe passage back to Syria. It is a moment of impossible hope. Your surviving officers, men who have seen nothing but deception and slaughter, are deeply suspicious. They know this is likely a trap. But your common soldiers, seeing a chance to live, a chance to escape this hell, begin to clamor for you to accept. They threaten you, their own general. They shout that you have sent them to their deaths, and the least you can do is try to save them now. They are on the verge of mutiny. Historians debate whether Serena's offer was genuine, a whim of a victorious general, or a calculated final deception. Your obsession led you to this point, but now it is the desperation of your own men that forces your hand. With a heavy heart, accompanied by the few surviving officers, you descend from the hill to meet your conqueror. You walk down the dusty slope of the hill, a defeated old man going to meet his destiny. Serena is the very picture of grace and magnanimity. He dismounts, smiling, and offers you a horse. It is a sign of respect, a courtesy from one commander to another. But as your small party of Romans and the Parthian honor guard begin to ride toward the designated meeting spot, the deception becomes clear. The Parthian soldiers begin to jostle your men, trying to separate you from your officers. A struggle breaks out. Octavius, ever loyal, draws his sword to defend you. He is immediately cut down. The rest of your command staff follow, killed in a brief one-sided scuffle. You are seized, pulled from your horse, and held fast. The trap has been sprung. There was never going to be a truce. There was only ever this. What happens next is one of the most famous and most debated death scenes in all of history. The details are murky, passed down through the writings of authors like Plutarch and Cassius Dio, men who were themselves writing decades or even centuries after the event. The story they tell, however, has a powerful poetic brutality that has echoed through the ages. You are dragged before Serena, who looks down at you not with anger, but with a kind of theatrical contempt. He addresses you, taunting your legendary greed, your insatiable hunger for wealth that led you to invade his lands. He declares that he will quench your thirst once and for all. According to the legend, you are held down, your mouth forced open. A crucible of gold, taken from the Roman dead, is heated in a fire until it is a shimmering, molten liquid. And then, as your horrified eyes watch, they pour the liquid gold down your throat. It is a death of pure, agonizing symbolism. The wealth you coveted your entire life becomes the instrument of your execution. The thing you loved has killed you. It is a story so perfect, so allegorically neat, that many historians believe it is probably an invention, a piece of powerful Roman propaganda designed to paint the Parthians as monstrously barbaric. A more obscure, and perhaps more plausible, account suggests you were simply beheaded and your head and right hand were sent to the Parthian king as trophies. But the legend of the molten gold is the one that endures. It is the perfect, horrifying punctuation mark on the story of your fatal obsession. Whether it happened exactly that way or not, the message is the same. Your life, defined by an all-consuming lust for what you did not have, ended with you being literally consumed by it. The richest man in Rome died with a throat full of gold, a final, silent testament to the catastrophic price of his ambition. Your death is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of another. Your head and your hand are sent as trophies to the Parthian king, or Rhodes II. In a moment of supreme, almost unbelievable historical irony, the king receives these gruesome gifts while he is enjoying a theatrical performance. He is at his court, watching a staging of Euripides' famous Greek tragedy, the Bacchae. The play is about another arrogant leader, King Pentheus of Thebes, who defies the god Dionysus and is torn to pieces by the god's frenzied female followers, the Maenads. The lead actor, playing the part of the triumphant Maenad who has killed Pentheus, is meant to carry a prop head onto the stage. But as he makes his entrance, he holds up not the prop, but your actual severed head. He sings the lines from the play, "We bring from the mountain a freshly cut tendril to the palace, a blessed prey." The Parthian court erupts in applause. Your end is not just a death, it is a piece of theater, a final public humiliation woven into a story about the folly of mortal pride. Back in Rome, the news of the disaster at Carrhae arrives like a shockwave. 20,000 Roman soldiers are dead. 10,000 more are captured, becoming prisoners of war who would live out their lives in the remote eastern reaches of the Parthian Empire, a famous lost legion that would haunt the Roman imagination for centuries. The sacred legionary eagles, the soul of the legions, have been lost to the enemy. It is one of the most catastrophic defeats in the long history of the Republic, and it does more than just humiliate Rome, it breaks it. The first triumvirate, the political alliance between you, Pompey, and Caesar, was always a fragile balance of power. You, with your immense wealth, were the glue that held the two ambitious generals together. You were the counterweight, the third leg of the stool. With you gone, there is nothing left to mediate between Pompey, the established hero in Rome, and Caesar, the rising star returning from Gaul with a fiercely loyal army and an unshakable belief in his own destiny. Your death creates a power vacuum. The rivalry that had simmered between Pompey and Caesar now boils over into open hostility. The political checks and balances you helped maintain crumble away. Historians will forever debate the inevitability of the civil war, but your death was undeniably the catalyst, the domino that, in falling, toppled all the others. The river Rubicon is crossed. The Republic is plunged into a bloody, self-destructive conflict that will last for years and ultimately lead to the death of the Republic itself and the birth of the Roman Empire under Caesar's heir, Octavian. Your fatal obsession, your personal, all-consuming need to match the glory of your rivals, did more than doom an army in a single city. It lit the fuse on a funeral pyre for the entire Roman Republic. You went looking for personal glory, and in your failure, you became an unwilling and anonymous architect of a new world, a world you would never see. The story is over now. The echoes of the drums have faded, and the dust has settled over the plains of Carrhae. The great machine of history has moved on, leaving the tragedy of Crassus and his legions behind. A faint, sad note in the grand symphony of time. You can feel the weight of the story begin to lift, like a heavy blanket being gently pulled away. The tension in your shoulders can soften, the muscles around your eyes can relax. The journey into that distant, sun-scorched desert is complete, and you have returned to the safety and comfort of your own quiet space. Allow your mind to drift away from the thoughts of gold and glory, of ambition and despair. Let them become distant images, like old paintings in a silent museum, interesting to observe, but no longer demanding your attention. Focus instead on the simple, physical reality of your own comfort, the feeling of the pillow beneath your head, the gentle weight of your blanket, the steady, easy rhythm of your own breathing. Each breath is an anchor, pulling you away from the turbulent waters of the past and into the calm, quiet harbor of the present moment. There are no more battles to be fought, no more warnings to be heeded. There is only this stillness, this deep and profound peace that fills the room around you. The world outside will continue with its own stories, its own dramas, but here, in this space, you are completely safe. You are shielded from it all. You can let go of the day, with all its thoughts and worries, and allow yourself to sink into a deep, restorative rest. Let the darkness be a soft, velvet curtain, closing on the stage of your day, signaling that it is time for peaceful sleep and gentle dreams. The end. Sweet dreams.